The Near-Death Confessions of a Neurosurgeon. He says life after death does exist. I'm sure doctors have seen a lot of miracles. Confessions of a Neurosurgeon, Dr. Eben Alexander, October 8, 2012, who had a near-death experience. As a neurosurgeon, he says, I have never believed in a phenomenon associated with near-death experiences. I grew up in the scientific world as the son of a neurosurgeon. I walked in the footsteps of my father and won the title of neurosurgery at Harvard Medical School and other universities. I thought that I understood what happens in the brain when people are near death, and I always believed that there is a good scientific explanation for the celestial journey outside the body, which describes people who approach death. In autumn of 2008, after 7 days in a coma in which my brain was completely idle, I experienced something so deep and intense that it gave me a scientific reason to be confident about life after death. 4 years ago, early in the morning, I woke up with a headache. Within a few hours of my entire cortex, which is responsible for thoughts and emotions and in essence makes us human, it stopped working. Doctors from Lynchburg General Hospital in Virginia, the hospital where I myself worked as a neurosurgeon, concluded that I was hit with a very rare bacterial meningitis that mostly attacks newborns. E. coli bacteria hit the cerebrospinal fluid and began to eat it away at my brain. When I was at the intensive care unit, my chances of survival were very small and the situation was getting worse. During the 7 days I lay on the bed in a deep coma, my body did not respond to external stimuli and my brain was completely out of order. On the 7th day in the hospital, when my doctors considered whether to continue my treatment or not, there's no scientific explanation for the fact that while my body lay in a coma, my mind was fully conscious and I was alive and healthy. My nerve tissue in the brain was paralyzed by bacteria that sidelined me completely out of action. Thanks to my consciousness embarked on a journey into another dimension, vast universe, dimensions of which I had never even dreamed existed, and that my old self with utter joy said nothing like that simply could exist. But the dimension, which has been described by countless people who have experienced near-death experiences or other mystical states, there really exists. I'm not the first to gain the experience that consciousness exists beyond the body. Flashes of these experiences are as old as humanity itself. It took me several months before, when I compared what happened to me, it was not just that I was conscious, even when I was in a coma. Much more important was that what happened to me during that time, when I go back to the beginning of my experience. I remember how I was in the clouds, great inflated pink and white clouds, which showed clearly against a blue-black sky. Above the clouds, above and far above, the crowds poured in shimmering, translucent creatures. Birds, angels, these words occurred to me in my mind until I later when I was writing my memories. Neither of those words, in fact, does not reflect the essence of the beings that were totally different from anything I have known on this planet Earth. They were more advanced, higher forms. From above, I heard a huge sound booming as the famous chant, and I wondered where this sound consists of, those winged creatures. Again, I thought about it later. I felt that living creatures were so happy that I was there. The sound was almost palpable, like the rain that you can feel on the skin, in this case, but not soggy. It was even stranger. There was something else with me. It was a woman. She was young, and I recall how she looked to the smallest detail. She had high cheekbones and deep blue eyes. Golden brown hair framed her beautiful face. The report had 3 parts, and if I should translate from earthly speech, one could say it sounded somehow like this. We've loved and cherished being sincere and forever. You do not have to worry. There is nothing you can do wrong. This news overwhelmed me with a huge sense of relief and crazy excitement. It was as if someone finally explained the rules of the game I've played all my life. without it, but I fully understood the essence. Quote, "We will show you a lot of things here," unquote. The woman said again without words, but with very clear ideas essence directed straight at me. "Or you can come back," she said. On this one, I had only one question. Back where? Blowing warm wind like the beautiful summer days, scattering the leaves of trees and distance past like heavenly water, divine wind, everything changed and moved the world around me again, an octave higher, the higher vibration. Although I still had little ability to speak, as we understand it on earth, I began wordlessly asking questions about the magical wind and the divine beings who stood behind me, or rather drifted with the wind. Where am I? Who am I? Why am I here? Every time I quietly made one of those ideas, came to the immediate response in the form of exploding colors of light, love and beauty that passed through me like a shock wave. What was absolutely amazing in these explosions was that all my questions were answered. They answered them, but in a way that was beyond the language. Ideas came directly, but it was not the way we're used to on earth. It was vague, intangible, or abstract. These ideas were solid and immediate, hotter than fire and wetter than water, and every time I got the answer, I was able to fully understand the concepts in every detail, which took me on earth for many years. I continued, I walked into the infinite dark space. It was so incredibly relaxing. Intense black was still permeating with light, a light that seemed to me to come from a huge brilliant orb, whom I felt close to each other. The orb was like a translator between me and what I was surrounded by. It was like I was born into a vast world. The universe itself was like a giant cosmic womb, an orb which I felt was somehow connected with it, or was even the same woman on butterfly wings that accompanied me. Later, when I returned, I found a quote from the 17th century Christian poet Henry Vaughan, who came into close contact with this magical place, this huge inky black spot, which was the home of divinity itself. Quote, "There is, one might say, God's darkness pervading light," end quote. That was exactly it, inky thick darkness that was permeated with intense light. Fully understood how extremely and utterly unbelievable that all sounds. If someone, and additionally a doctor, said something like that in the past, I'm absolutely sure that it's under some delusion. He would have been under some delusion. But what happened to me was completely distanced of an illusion. It was real, and actually much more real than of anything in my life. And that includes my wedding and the birth of my 2 sons. This is what happened to me, asking for clarification. Modern scientists tell us that the universe is uniform, that it's indivisible, although it seems to us that we live in a world of separation and differences. Quantum physics tells us that beneath the surface of every object and event in the universe are completely interconnected with every other object or event. There's no real separation. Before my personal experience, these words were mere abstractions. Today, it's a reality for me, not only that the universe is defined as unity, but it's also, now I know, is defined by love. The universe, as I experienced during coma with utter shock and joy, is the same thing. They spoke of Einstein and Jesus, though each in a different sense. I spent a decade as a neurosurgeon in the most prestigious medical establishments in our country. I know that many of my peers are like I will advocates of the theory, according to which the brain, and especially the cerebral cortex, generates and acknowledges that we live in a universe without any emotions, including love. As you know, we know for us radiates God in the universe, but this faith, this theory is now in ruins. What has happened to me? It was ruined. I plan to spend the rest of my life investigating the nature of the consciousness, right, and explaining that we are much more than our physical brains. It's something we'll try to explain as clearly as it can be to scientific colleagues and other people. And they will be that it will be no easy task, and for that reason I describe. When the castle's old scientific theory starts to collapse, nobody that initially does not pay attention. Building an old castle stood in the first place too much work, and if it collapses, it will be in its place building a brand new one. I come to it then as I was recovering. I came to as I was recovering, and I came back to life. I began to talk with my wife, Holly, who suffered a lot, and our two sons, according viewing angles from full of polite disbelief, especially on the part of my friends, doctors. I very nearly found who will be a difficult task for me to explain to people what I experienced during the week while my brain was off. One of the places where I did not have a problem explaining my experiences was the church, the place where I previously lived only rarely. First, as I entered the church after the coma, I have seen all too well. Stainless glass colors reminded me of the sparkling beauty of the landscape that I saw up there. When the deep organ tones, I've been remembering that thoughts and emotions of the hereafter are like waves that are moving through you. And most importantly, the images of Jesus and his disciples evoked in me a message that was the essence of my path, that God loves and accepts us unconditionally and endlessly, much more than I was taught in my childhood. Today, many believe the religious truths have lost their potency and that science, not religion, is the path to truth. Before this experience, I strongly doubted that it was my case. But now I understand that such a view is the easiest. The plain fact is that the materialist picture of the body and the brain forming human consciousness is doomed to extinction. In its place comes a new view of the mind and body. This view is scientific and spiritual at the same time, and the highest value will be what we always take great scientists weighing the most out of us, the truth. This new picture of reality will generate long. And this will not be completed in our time, and probably not even the time when our children will grow up. The reality is too immensely complex and mysterious to it that it creates a perfect image. By essential terms, the universe is an evolving entity known to God to the last atom, God who is taking care of us even deeper and more awe than any loving parent of our childhood. And I personally believe in the afterlife. This is on Infinity Explorers by Ansh Srivastava. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.